I do believe the difficult part for Brady here is that race does come into play, because it's going to seem as a white man who is analyzing football is questioning the work ethic of a black player, right? Which we all can't do because we can't put ourselves in Deshaun's place. But I think to take it to the massage thing and make a joke, I think when Brady Quinn makes a joke about the massage situation and accusations, it's disrespectful on many levels. It's disrespectful to the women who are involved in that situation. Yeah. If they have been through what you're suggesting they've been through, because to make that joke, it seems as if you're criticizing Deshaun or putting him in that place of being wrong. So if he is wrong, then there's someone who had to be wronged in that situation. And so now it's disrespectful to those young ladies. On the other side, it's also disrespectful to Deshaun Watson in the sense that it hasn't been proven he's done any of these things. And so now, as someone who is respected as doing their job with a certain level of professionalism, which he told me on the phone when we talked about CJ Stroud and casting aspersions on his character as well, right? He does. And I do think he's good on TV. And so now this is, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't pay attention to him enough to know how he critiques the character of white quarterbacks. So maybe there is times where he's casting aspersions on them as well. But I know this is 2 black quarterbacks. And I think that's the problem. When you start to do your job by assessing the character of the man, right, not the success or production of the player. And we can't do that when we do our job. And it's really getting to a point of being disrespectful for Brady.
I haven't really talked about ESPN's Ryan Clark much on this channel, even when he had that horrible take about Tua Tagovailoa a couple months back where he ridiculed the man's nutrition program and basically called him thick, fat, and out of shape, and that he had the body of some bottom-tier chick working out of a strip club in Atlanta.
He was not at the dinner table eating what the nutritionist had advised. Oh my. He looks happy.
Okay.
He is thick.
He's thick.
Yeah, he's built like a girl work at Onyx in Atlanta right now on the bottom.
Come on now.
So the issue on hand that I'm referring to is what Ryan Clark said about former Browns QB Brady Quinn, who criticized Deshaun Watson recently. For those of you who don't know, the Browns QB has been receiving a ton of criticism for not hopping back into the game last week against the Indianapolis Colts after what looked to be a brutal hit. Deshaun was on the sidelines getting checked out, but was eventually cleared by medical staff and given the green light to get back into the game. However, the QB decided to sit out for the remainder of the game, and this is where all the criticism begins. Watson received at the time the largest NFL contract that totaled $230 million fully guaranteed, pretty much unheard of in the league. However, in the year and change he's been in Cleveland, the former Texan has looked like a shell of himself. This was a guy who was once considered the number 1, 2, or 3 QB a few years back, but since moving to the Browns, his numbers have fallen off tremendously. So what happened was that a few days ago, Brady Quinn on a podcast pretty much called out Deshaun's commitment to the Browns. Kind of funny considering that as a rookie, Brady Quinn was pretty much a bust and held out on the Browns in 2007 and in 2008 elected to get finger surgery and not play through injury himself. Anyways, have a listen to what he said.
Everyone else with a medical opinion just clears him pretty much. I mean, it's like, well, it's kind of similar to this. You get a kid who gets a trust fund, right? $230 million. Then he's like, hey, you want to go out and get a job? He's like, not really.
No.
I've got $230 million coming. I'm good.
Okay, I'm not going to say that Brady Quinn is right or wrong with his criticism of Deshaun Watson's character, but if I had to lean away, I would say the criticism was maybe a tad bit out of line, calling Watson a trust fund baby who now has no desire of stepping back on the field and questioning his commitment. Truthfully speaking, Deshaun probably knows his own body better than anyone else and obviously had his reasons for not stepping back in against the Colts. But that said, Brady Quinn is an analyst at Fox Sports and part of his job is to critique athletes fairly. Anyways, this criticism eventually made its way to Deshaun Watson's QB coach, Quinton Avery, and he had no issue sticking up for his guy and calling out Brady Quinn. But then sometime yesterday, Ryan Clark made a video post on Twitter, clipping his Pivot podcast that I played for you guys in the intro and had wrote this message along with it. Here's what he wrote in that tweet. Deshaun Watson has had some trouble returning to his old form since becoming a Brown, and I feel confident saying that. What I won't say is what Brady Quinn said. None of it. As an analyst, it isn't my job to judge a man's intent. How can I? How can I challenge a man's want to or link that want to money? Should I be allowed to call a man a trust fund baby because he isn't playing up to expectation? This isn't Quinn's first time challenging a player's character. Before the draft, he did the same to CJ Stroud, so maybe this is his way. Okay, I'm gonna stop it here for a second. For RC to make this about race is just absolutely absurd. Roughly 3/4 of the league is black. Should Brady only criticize the white players? And are all the black football players above reproach because you're gonna label them as a racist? This is one of the dumbest takes I've heard, and considering it's coming from Ryan Clark is not surprising. This guy has a history of race baiting his audience in the past before. Right before the 2022 NFL season began, the Rams and Bengals held a joint practice that turned into a huge brawl with Aaron Donald swinging his helmet at a Bengals player. And I believe former NFL guard Jeff Schwartz tweeted out that the league should suspend Donald, to which RC and Stephen A. Smith had an issue with a white reporter calling for the suspension of a black player to be labeled as biased.
I appreciate the fact that RC reminded the world that when you're labeling guys like that and accusing them of criminality with the verbiage that you use, that's a problem. And we should have a heightened level of sensitivity to that as black men.
This is a pretty dangerous game Ryan is playing here because he's insinuating Brady Quinn's commentary as being racially motivated. Maybe they are, I don't know, but without any proof, making wild accusations like that and putting that out there to his audience is just wild to me. He then criticized Quinn talking about Deshaun's character and said he did the same thing with CJ Stroud before the draft. Okay, this is the fool who did the exact same thing with Tua, but he went far out to left field criticizing the Dolphins QB's nutrition plan. He basically challenged Tua's character. With regards to CJ Stroud, I just read what Brady Quinn said about CJ before the draft, and he didn't say anything that most analysts wouldn't have said. This is his exact comments before he went on to praise CJ Stroud's game on the field and called him the second best quarterback out of the draft. He said, "The Manning Passing Academy, I've been told he committed to the night before and then didn't show up. That's football royalty, and when you do that, it's gonna set off some alarms for people like, hey man, that's not how you conduct yourself, especially around the Manning family or just in general for you to be a franchise QB." The second half of RC's tweet read, "To finish, Quinn made jokes about Deshaun Watson's alleged past while arguing with Watson's QB coach, Quincy Avery. There are families and people involved in those situations that are forever changed, and that trauma is not to be played with. I guess it's cool to get laughs from the rest of your frat boy friends and other failed QBs, but you'd hope we analysts would see the whole picture. That's a job, and in truth, we all fall short. At least we should know we can't judge intent on film, and the respect of incredibly sensitive situations is of value. Some things are bigger than football." Is this guy retarded or something? I mean, just look across your desk or to your right, and everyone on that ESPN panel does the exact same type of jokes to get clicks and engagement on social media. Stephen A. Smith, Dan Orlovsky, and even you. Holy shit, someone actually tweeted this video of Ryan Clark earlier that same day, making light of that Jada and Will Smith story, all for a good laugh. Like, you can't make this up.
Steve Wilkes is blitzing, playing zero, playing man-to-man. And on Monday night, Jordan Addison ran away from these defenders like Jada Pinkett Smith running away from marriage responsibilities. And so they're going to have to try to figure out how do they stop Jamal